Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and the subject of today's newsletter is the 7 lean wastes, and why it's only 7, it's not 8 wastes. So we're going to talk about the 7 wastes, we're going to talk about what they are and how to use them, what they're really about. Lean gets totally misunderstood, and these 7 wastes get totally misunderstood. And if you misuse the principle, they simply do not transform your manufacturing process in the way that you were expecting it to. So let's get into this thing. Let's look at the 7 wastes. So it's all about the 7 lean wastes. Alright, so some people like to use a little acronym. They like to use Tim Wood as a little memory jogger. I'm going to try and do this from just off the top of my head here. So we're going to go defects, overproducing, overproduction, producing too much or too soon, basically, waiting, transport, motion, inventory that shouldn't be there, not inventory that's useful, and finally over processing, inappropriate processing, buying equipment that you don't really need to do tasks in overcomplicated ways. So there are the 7 wastes. Now let's put the 8th one on the bottom. The 8th one is unused human capital. Okay, so we'll pop that on the bottom. In other words, you're not using your people, you're not using your people's brains. By the way, that is a waste, but it's not one of these 7. So let's talk about what these 7 wastes are really about. I was recently at a conference over in France. The conference was about something called demand-driven MRP. I was there to deliver a piece on Six Sigma. I didn't really have too much knowledge of what demand-driven MRP was. If you're interested, by the way, it's really about software that drives lean. All right, so that's really what it's about. And I listened to a number of the presentations, and one of the little principles that I was given in one of the presentations just reminded me about what lean was all about and how to get the best out of it. Because lean is pretty much about one thing and one thing only, and it's about this. It's plain and it's simple and it's about flow. How fast do orders flow through your manufacturing process? And that is what these 7 wastes are about. They are about the goods, they are about the material that's moving through the system. They are not and never were about people in your system. This is not about efficiency in the sense that we are used to, about making people working all the time and things like that. These are all about orders, and they are all about things that stop flow. So let's look a little bit deeper at this. What are we saying? Well, basically, your manufacturing process is simply a pipeline, and you've got flow going through the pipeline. So let's put some orders in the pipeline. So we've got an order, an order, an order. Now, attached to each one of these orders is money. Okay, there's profit to be made on each order. Let's say that I'm just going to say there's £10 to be made. Let's keep it simple. There's £10 to be made on each order. Now it's pretty simple, isn't it? What's lean all about? Well, it's about making this thing get to the end of that system as fast as you can possibly make it. That's what lean is about. And of course, the faster you make this flow, guess what happens? The more money you make. It's as simple as that. And these things are about the things that stop flow. So let's look at it. Defects, pretty obvious. You take your £10, you throw it in the bin. Okay, so yeah. So that's going to prevent flow. And by the way, these are orders. These are customer orders. So what we're doing here, we are measuring this from a customer's perspective. Okay, so obviously the customer doesn't want a defective item. So that's £10 straight in the bin. What else have you got? Overproducing. Well, what overproducing, of course, is doing is it's putting inventory in here. It's putting queues in. It's producing things the customer doesn't want. The customer wants their order. The customer wants their order that £10 worth of profit is attached to. Why are you making other things? There's no money to be made in making things that there isn't an order attached to. So you'll just put stock. You'll end up overproducing. What do? You put stock and you put queues in here. What does that do? Slows down the flow. Okay, what else are you doing? Of course, we're creating waiting. Waiting is any queue. So obviously, if there's queues of orders or things stuck in inventory or batch sizes and things like that that you've got on your you've got in some of your manufacturing plants, what do you create? You create waiting. Most important, this is not people waiting. This is really important. This is all about time. What we are measuring in flow. What do we measure? We measure time. We do not measure money. We're not measuring money here. We're not measuring efficiency. Okay? We are measuring time. Lean waste is all measured in time. If you've ever measured the total waste in one of your value streams, you will have done it using time. We never use money in lean. Okay, so we've got waiting, we've got transport. Yeah, just moving the things between these areas. What's that all about? It's another version of waiting, really, except it's waiting on wheels, isn't it? Yeah. What's the next one? Motion. Now, motion. This is the one that you could say is about people. Because this is about local, the way you've set the workstation up. Everyone's moving, reaching, lots of motion going on. So this is the one that could be about people. But of course, what this is really about is the amount of movement the parts are making around the workstation. So we're measuring really almost by the operator, but actually it's about bringing the parts closer to the point of activity. The more you do that, the less motion you get. So even this one, if you stick to thinking about the parts, that keeps you on the same page. Obviously inventory. Now this is unnecessary inventory. There are lots of inventory piles, pull systems, etc., which are necessary given the way your systems work. You are trying to reduce the amount of inventory, both necessary and unnecessary. But first time through, what you'll find is you've got piles of rubbish that you do not need. People have kind of overcommitted, they've been over safe. You've got piles of stock everywhere that you can get rid of. So, unnecessary inventory. And finally, over-processing. Over-processing is putting in systems that just aren't needed. A classic one for me, I was recently at a client where they drew a picture of what went on. And there was a planning procedure. And the plan was created obviously by the planning department. And the next thing he did, the next step, was to go to the managing director. And the managing director checked it to see if it was okay. And then the plan was issued. Now that is over-processing. That's inappropriate processing. If this guy has some rules, if there's something he wants to achieve, it's simple. He deploys the rules down to this department here and he makes them use them to create the plan. And it's done right first time. Why would you do it any other way? Why plan and then check it and then put it out there? That's inappropriate processing, over-processing. Okay, so there's a classic example. Buying technology when we don't need it, that is also inappropriate processing. Everybody loves a computer when actually something so much simpler and therefore cheaper and much more reliable would work better. Over processing. So now we get to this one, unused capital. Well, what does that do to flow? Doesn't do anything. Don't get me wrong, it's a waste. You should be using your people to get rid of these 7 wastes. So maybe having it on the list is a reminder for you to use your people properly. But actually, does it affect flow? Absolutely not. So these 7 wastes are about flow. And what this is all about is the time it takes to go from this end to this end. The speed of flow. Because obviously every time this one goes out the end, these 4 have got to have gone ahead of it. So if I make this one flow 1 every hour, it's £40 an hour. If I make this one flow 1 every 30 minutes, wow, that's £80 an hour. I've just doubled the money that I'm making. That's why it's about flow. Flow is where the money is. But don't go chasing the money. Chase flow. That is what the 7 wastes in lean are all about. And if you chase flow, you'll make more money than you've ever made through your system. The 7 lean wastes. Okay, as a little addition to that tutorial where we were talking about flow, here's a 1-minute video that shows you what happens to flow and therefore how much money you make if you reduce batch sizes, stop overproducing. So this is just one of the great 7 wastes. So let's turn this process on and let's see what happens. The clock started running, process at the top with a batch of 10, then a batch of 5, then a batch of 1. Just watch how fast they make money. So I think we're going to get the batch at the bottom out. The 1-piece flow, look, gets the batch out in 29 seconds. So if that was our order with £10 attached to it, 29 seconds, we got £10 in our hands. 41 seconds for the batch of 5. And finally, the batch of 10 at the top there. How long is it going to take? 59 seconds. Completed. Look at the difference. We're flowing at double the speed. We could have made another order. We would have made twice as much money with smaller batch sizes. Don't let anybody ever tell you that batch sizes equals efficiency equals making money. Batch sizes destroy flow, and flow is where the money is.